everyone. It's Cassie. Welcome back to the Ambitious Drive podcast. Today, I have one of the most sought after designers of the generation. Mara Chua is on the show. Mara is a fashion designer from Manila, Philippines. I came to know and met her sometimes 10, 15 years ago when I used to be a marketing manager in some sports and lifestyle arena in that industry. And she was already actually exploring the world of eccentricity and making use of excess materials into something of great use. We're going to talk about more of that in a while. And I've witnessed and seen her evolution to now embracing featuring classic hints into modernization, from subtle hints of Baroque and Rococo vintage to featuring classic hints into all these old Hollywood glam and corsetry. She will definitely let you know what she is experiencing and specializing right now, but she has been featured in front of the covers of first-tier publications in the country. She recognized as one of the promising young designers as well, and she's been really practicing her art for the kind of like a longest. So she is a designer warrior also. She also designed actually our Miss Universe Rabia Mateo's outfits during the pre-pageant game. And so if you are listening in the month of June, we're celebrating Pride Month, and we have Mara today to speak about transitions, equity over equality, her story, how she did it, and the evolution of self-expression towards freedom and authenticity. Okay, so driven and ambitious. Hey there, Mara. Nice to see you.
Hi, hello.
Hi. How has been what's going on with you, Mara?
Right now, returning to my feet like everyone else. Trying to wade through like this new landscape, basically.
Yeah. So Mara, I mean, I understand that, you were all over the place in 2020. I think, with all these difficulties that happened in 2020, one of those things that went to your career was you also had to pivot and in some ways had to absorb digital transformation. And it's interesting because your industry is fashion design, wherein you need to really have people right in front of you in order to serve them. But in your case, I've been watching you on social, and you have been creating, dresses for, Australia, New Zealand, and all these places. Like, how do you do it? What happened in 2020 that really changed the game for you? Yeah.
Um, Actually, ever since I started, I sort of put a focus on internet, on making my presence more felt on the internet, because I already knew that internet was back then the future. So I really like made a point to regularly post my stuff on Instagram, on Facebook. Back then, Instagram wasn't really like super active. So it worked for me back in 2020 because then I already established my presence online somehow. So it wasn't like hard for me to get clients from abroad at the same time to market like say face masks, which was
Yeah.
like one of my strategies in 2020.
Mhm.
What people needed.
Yeah. Maybe can you tell us, maybe what many milestones ago, who is Mara Chua and how did you get here?
Um,
Oh.
I started with Mega Young Designers competition back in 2012. I joined there. I made it. I made it until the very end. I, I became first runner up to Renan Paxson, who's a good friend of mine. And then I don't know. From there, I kind of met people who like introduced me to dressing celebrities. At the same time, we started building my bridal line as well. I initially didn't intend to become a bridal designer, but a friend of mine from high school wanted to have her wedding gown made, and she was very, very open about the design. So I was able to really explore my vision for bridal, and I found out that there's actually a market for what I do. So I sort of continued it, and then it evolved into basically two lines right now, which is my eponymous label, Chua, and then another more bridal retail focused line, which is opposite the Back Studio. Um, and then like opposites was like born maybe 2 3 years ago, but it was like really good time because then the pandemic happened and then everybody wanted what we were doing with opposites, which is something less human contact, easier to produce, and simpler, but
Yeah.
still meaningful.
But how did you find your voice, Mara? I mean, I mean, if they get to see, of course, the designs of your dresses, it's actually out of, it's not the usual, it's not the typical. And I love the fringe style. I love the eccentricity. And how did you find that?
A constantly evolving process for me. It's only recently that I've sort of settled into, how do I say this, into a space where I can call it like my own visual self. It's always been like, oh, I like this. Maybe I can incorporate this into the design. I like that, etc. And then as a result, I kind of absorbed a lot of things and then filtered out the ones that didn't feel like it was me. So that's how I arrived with like my signature hit now, which is sort of like a very powerful version of womanhood. A very like it's the type of thing that you want to wear. It's an armor that you want to wear when you want to feel like you're the hottest person
So what do you think is what is the signature Mara style anyway?
It's definitely very modern. It's, something you move to the beat of your own drum. You're unapologetic. You're a woman who embraces the power of womanhood.
Yeah, I've noticed you are very, very strong with corsets. You're
Yeah.
very strong with bold statements. And I remember you sharing about storytelling
Mhm.
on the dresses that you're created. I mean, I think it's not for everyone, but you get to express this also. I mean, what is your process when it comes to talking to these brides or to these women, and you get to incorporate all these? You mean that vision, married to your vision, their vision to your vision, and how did you get to marry it? And who is the typical Mara Chua bride that you actually serve?
Hmm. With brides, it's a different story because it's a very personal process.
Yeah.
It's something that they will only wear once. So it has to like we normally go back and forth a lot. But like somewhere along the road there's like this light bulb moment where I kind of figure out who she is and then what she really means somehow visually. Because as a designer, it's my job to uh, put her in something that she has not yet imagined because I'm the one equipped with the right vocabulary, the visual vocabulary for her. So that's how I normally work with brides. With like models and celebrities, I mean they're very very open to ideas anyway. So when you put her in something that she feels good in, she's like fine.
Mara, there are a lot of people in this space of fashion, definitely, right? And putting yourself on the map, I'm sure it's not an easy, an easy transition, or it's not an easy way in, I guess. Um, can you tell us a story on what are the challenges that you had what are the challenges that you had to endure, And what were your thoughts and feelings about it? And especially knowing, of course, that you're in the LGBT, and in the LGBT community also, there are competition. I mean, how do you handle the competition? How do you handle putting yourself on the map? And here you are, a new player, right? You're a new player, and then suddenly you are in on all these magazines and stuff like that. Like, what is going through your thoughts as you evolved as well?
When I was start, I think it's easier to like get yourself out there today with the internet. When I started back in 2013, the internet was just it's something people use for work and school. It's not something you use to promote yourself. So you really have to do it the manual or the hard way. Like it's word of mouth, you attend fairs, etc., etc., etc. I mean, today you don't even have to attend fairs anymore. You just have to really like advertise yourself wisely. So I mean that when I was starting, that was a challenge. You know, how do I get myself like out there, especially since I didn't have a storefront. I mean, you could pass by the street, you will never find where I'm doing my stuff. Um, and then, well, I just kept doing what I felt like doing. I didn't really like it never really crossed my mind to do something else, to do something that felt like it wasn't me. So in a way, I'm not really like concerned about competition because
Love it.
that
That's
what
so
I
good.
do is something that's uniquely me. So I mean, I'm actually very like embracing of like other people's vision and perspective. Because I think competition, I mean, competition is not for me. Like I don't really see it as a threat. I enjoy seeing other designers thrive as well. Genuinely speaking, I don't, I don't feel like I have to do something to outshine them or something or anything because I know that what I'm doing is uh, something that very few people can really.
Ah, so proud of you. I just love that. Very Miss Universe. Yeah, Mara, you have been very outspoken when it comes to your entrepreneurial journey. Now, let's get into that. This is going to be very interesting because I know like you have been sharing about it. I mean, having to work on just a room before to the warehouse stories, the hiring stories, just so many. So let's get into the entrepreneurial path that Mara Chua had to go through and is going through. And yeah, I mean, I love how you are also educating, actually. You've been very educational. I mean, I remember, you were posting about how people think that, oh, just for a simple dress, I mean, how come it costs this much? But here you are, you walk us through like, okay, this is how the bead work actually happens. It's not just like a glue gun that we just put it in there and stuff like that. um Thousands of beads, it's how many hours. And because of that, like before I got married, right, before I got married, I was also looking for dresses and stuff. And then this is where I really appreciated it more that you have been sharing these kinds, because for me, it's, I mean, you actually opened up this entire thinking that, or not really thinking, but more of like the perspective of how to actually see the workmanship of a designer. So and also the hiring. So let's talk about your entrepreneurial journey and why are you actually educating people about the craft that you guys are doing. I mean, not just you, but the fashion industry in general. Let's talk about that.
Okay, let's
What?
start.
Yeah.
I mean, I started very young. I think like 21, 22.
Yeah.
I mean, I was excited to dive into the business. And when I started making a little bit of money, I was excited to like put up my own stock store and stuff. Because that was the trajectory then. but like as with young age, you make certain decisions that you probably regret later in life. But you will learn a lot of good lessons.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's part of being an entrepreneur to like learn hard lessons along the way, and I made quite a few of them. I mean, it wasn't like smooth sailing all the way. I moved a lot. I mean, this latest place that I'm like working in is like 2 years old, which is probably one of the longest stays I've had. But like it's a very interesting journey to grow and grow at a certain pace. That's like fast. Like you have to add people, and then you have to learn the legalities. You can't just hire people. You have to take care of them.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
I mean, these are very very real lessons that you have to learn, and you don't just learn this overnight. So it's still and then you have and then you compound that with like the design aspect of the job. It's fun, but it's never boring. That's why you were asking me for like the past couple of years what I was doing. All I could answer is work. It's really time consuming. And one
Yeah.
of the most unforgettable like experiences I've had was acquiring more clients than I can handle. But thankfully, I was able to handle it. It was like super stressful, and it was like every time that we're planning for production, etc. I always go back to that point where we had like I think 10 weeks of no, literally 3 hours sleep. We would sleep at 3 a.m., wake up at 7 to continue working for like 10 straight weeks. After that, we were so burned out. So I would like go back to that because that was like a very big learning lesson for us. Like never again would we want to go back to that place. You know, properly. You have to put everything on the proper calendar. I think I was starting then. I didn't have assistant at the time, so I was like saying, "Oh yeah, sure, you can. Sure, I still have time. I still have time." So like now we already have proper planning. So December we already it's already in the calendar. It's already there. We already plot it. Like when we're going to when we have to start the production, etc. So we don't have to rush everything. Because I think when I was starting, there wasn't really like a very strong, there wasn't really like a school or anything that would teach you the entrepreneurial side of fashion. It was really mostly the fashion side of fashion. You really have to learn the ropes of like creating a system for things so that you can be consistent in what you do. It doesn't produce good work today and then you produce okay work tomorrow because you weren't able to produce like you weren't able to build an internal system that could guarantee the quality of the work and the timeliness of the
Yeah, I totally echo you on you on that. That systems talaga, having system processes and structures in place. I think I have been saying this also over the podcast several times also that it's so important to have systems in place. But it's not also easy to put systems in place because you have to go through the needle of knowing what kind of systems do you need, right?
it takes a certain mindset to be able to build one without the guidance of another person or a partner that knows how to do this. Like, I mean, I'm by myself. I do everything from the business side to the design side. So it takes a certain mindset to be able to plot it down. And most designers, they're artists. So,
I mean, they're not business owners; they're just artists, right?
they're
Yeah, it's a different thing.
artists, they're very creative, they're very emotional. So I think this is one of the main hurdles when it comes to like design business. That's why you always um before you always have like problems with them not delivering on time, etc., etc. But it's evolving, it's evolving. Like now with consumers being more aware of what they deserve, we as suppliers have to meet the demand of the consumers. We always have to deliver on that. It's like number of things.
Yeah.
A designer these days cannot get away with not delivering.
That's a good point. That's a good point. That actually, parang I think in every industry also, if you are a visionary, it's hard to be the executioner. Okay, I mean, I think that's a wrong word. Pinatay mo siya. The one who executes, right? So yeah, so I think it's a two different thing that business owners also tend to wear, I mean, two hats, but you can't really be two hats all the time. You can't wear two hats all the time, right? So that's why systems it's in place. Mars, specifically, I remember this too, that when you first hired the people, maybe let's walk us through the journey of your entrepreneurship during I mean, I'm sure there are young people or there are aspiring fashion designers who is listening right now and is admiring you for the work that you do and wanted to also open her own boutique, maybe, or maybe just designing, I don't know, like all those things. What are the things that they should consider first as their foundation before they dive into the next step? Like, this is your hardcore experience, so maybe let's walk into that.
I think with especially with custom garments or like made to order, you really have to know what you're doing. You can just know like a piece of just one part of it. You have to know like the whole process from start to finish. You don't have to do it yourself, but you have to know how things are made, how things go. So you have a very good idea of like how soon can you expect a garment to be constructed from start to finish. So you have a very good idea of the time of your timelines or your deliverables. That's I think the very like although it really helps if you know how to do the patterns yourself, because that's like the backbone of the whole production. So it helps a lot if you know how to do it yourself, because you're going to save a lot of money on hiring a pattern maker. Because the pattern maker is going to be the most expensive, going to be your most expensive talent, because he's also going to be the most.
Okay, so patterns. Let's get into patterns. How important is it? Like, especially now, like when you do your bridal, of course, they're not all the same, right? So, how do you actually get to be sustainable, knowing that it's a different pattern altogether, like all different brides, all different, clothes and.
That's the thing. It's not that different. It's not that different if you
Oh,
know
really?
already figured it out. It's not, you don't have to do it from scratch every single time.
Oh,
Once
that's why there's a signature look, right?
yeah,
That's why there's a signature Mara look, because
you don't have to do it from scratch every single time once you figured it out. The pattern is how do I explain the pattern? It's like the base of everything. If you're into construction, it's basically like the whole frame of the structure. If you're with cooking, it's like the butter, it's food. It's like you cannot build anything without it. Especially if you're going to go into scaling the business and producing more, then you really need to have a pattern. You really have to have patterns, because it's how you can produce more without having to repeat the whole process over and over again.
okay, so I'm learning here. So even if, just a little nutshell on that, I mean a summary on that, even if your brides, of course, are looking different, that's why there is a signature look, or the signature, yeah, I guess it's signature look, right? The signature design that stands out at Asmara. What happens is this is your way of scaling as well, because okay, you already have, okay, this is how it sounds like, and then the rest of the features is actually what is that, I mean, becomes the differentiator. So it's like our signature offer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you have like a base pattern, and
Base. Okay, there you go.
edit it. And we rarely like start from scratch these days because we already have like the base pattern from like extra small to like really extra large. So we have like a very complete set of sizes already. That's how like I that's how we were able to actually pivot to like a more oriented service with opposites attract recently because we already completed our patterns. So it's easier for us to replicate all our styles now. So that's how important pattern is because you know your pattern, you can do it consistently. So the fit, the finish, the cut, everything is going to be very consistent. So because the, the prevailing system locally with designers is that you have like probably two, three gown makers who do it from scratch, but you can tell if someone did it, some one of the gown makers did it, or gown maker B did it, or gown maker C did it, because the pattern, the way they work is very different. The styles are very different, so it's not very consistent. The proportions are different, etc., etc. And we managed to eliminate that by creating like one pattern for everything.
Yeah, and from what I'm learning here from you is that aside from having the signature offer, which is the base pattern that's that gets to scale your business also a repeatable into a repeatable process. What I'm learning here is also as a consumer, it's really important for us to know what is the signature look of the designer so that I would know like if is this the kind of design do I that I want. So if it's all about corsets, okay, I want to think about Mara. If
Yeah.
it's all about silhouette, silk, whatever, maybe it's another person. If it's color gold, then all gold glitter, whatever, it's another designer and stuff like that. So I think what I'm learning from you here is also number 3 is that having to also put in the consistent work of that specific pattern and showing it off to the people over and over and over again, regardless of whatever the design is, because it creates your personal brand
Yes.
on who Mara Chua is or who the designer is. Okay, this is interesting. Right. So, but when it comes to empowering decisions, when you finally said, I know you have a lot of stories about this. When you finally said you are going to hire na, ayan. So when you said you're going to hire already, oh my gosh, Mars, you have so many stories about this.
Uh,
What was the lesson, or what's the greatest lesson of all greatest lesson that you have been sharing that you want to share?
my first hire was like when before 2012 even, like 2010, 2011. Just ask our family driver if he knows someone, if he knows a neighbor who's like sewing that I can hire. That's how it started. I was like super young, so I didn't have a lot of qualifications. I just needed someone to help me do that's how I started, and then um, she hired a neighbor of hers that's not really a sewer, but I got lucky because this person, her name is Lucy, or my second hire, basically, stayed with me until today. So she's been with me for more than 10 years.
Wow. Yeah.
So I got really lucky with that. I mean, I think at the early stages, I was looking for skill. Now I'm looking for character.
Or
Character when it comes to hiring people. Like I want someone like Lucy who I don't know why she stayed with me, but probably I'd like to believe that she saw the vision. She saw like, oh, this can work. Like I can have like there's longevity with this person. So I want to see someone who's staying not because of just the compensation, but because they have a certain sense of responsibility as well. You know,
yeah.
they entered this, so um they need to make it work as well.
Okay. So I'm learning here. Okay, don't look for skill right away. Look for attitude and character and who they are.
Skill can be taught, although there is a certain limit to that. But generally speaking, yes, skill can be taught. Like the person who's doing my wedding gowns right now, he never really even sewed wedding gowns before I taught him how to do it.
Yeah.
Skill can definitely be taught. It's something that if you find exactly if you find the right person who's like very open to new ways of to learning, to new techniques,
Yeah.
to new, then you can definitely teach that person. It takes a certain aptitude to learn at a later age. And I've hired some really, really good ones, but they're very rigid in their point of view. They're used to doing things their way. They're not used to um, integrating what they learned into the system that we built. So it didn't work. So I mean, they didn't last very long because we already have a very, very established system. So if you're not malleable, then you're just going to find it very hard to adjust.
Yeah, there's going to be certain resistance to that. Wow.
Yes, I really believe it's character. It's like it's very hard to explain because you're not really looking at this. You're not looking for certain items in the CV of a person or their
Agree.
to determine like is this person a good fit for the company. So you really have to like take your time to get to know them, like how they are. You don't really have to hire the perfect person. Just have to hire like the person that you know you can work with. You can have a harmonious relationship for a very long time.
Parang boyfriend ba yan?
More or less. You have to think long term. Also another factor in hiring. You have to think long term because it's very hard to train people. So you have to think like, is this person going to be with me for the next? Can this person stay with me for the next 2, 3 years or 5 years? Because it's very hard to train. It's very hard for people to adjust to a new working environment. And every time you're hiring, it's starting from zero. So hard.
Yeah.
Already
Parang did you
my virtual assistants right now. It's driving me crazy.
well, it's a different ball altogether. Altogether. Okay. So, Mart, when I mean, speaking of all these hard decisions that you have gone through and is going through, and you're a growing business and all, have you ever had discrimination, or have you ever felt or treated differently by other people because you are I mean, what is okay? Let's get into the hard. I mean, I think I'm going to ask for. I mean, the hard conversations here. Um, did you ever had
Yeah,
difficulties with being gay?
like for being trans, running my own business. I mean, I'm pretty shielded from like the harshness of reality because I mean it's my business. It's my territory. So I mean people have to adhere to my rules. But outside, generally speaking, um, no, not really. Or if there is, I'm just like brushing it off because I mean before when I was younger I'd be more affected by it, but now that I'm slightly old, just a little bit older,
Yeah.
um, and there comes a point where you realize life is not that long to be bothered by small things. And I never really had like major discrimination problems except probably like, though yes I've developed like a sort of wouldn't say phobia, but with gyms normally, because I have to use the restroom and stuff. So I normally check if the gym has unisex CR.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be put in another CR that I'm uncomfortable with. And it happened once, but I was like super duper young, like 21. So I mean that's really the thing. It's normally the CR issue, but normally with malls, I don't really check anymore. But with gyms, they're more sensitive because people take a bath there. So
Yeah. So, okay. Um, my first question here with you is: are you comfortable being called as gay, or is it more respectfully better as trans?
I identify as trans.
Right. Right.
Right.
Yeah. And when people actually go to you and tell you, "Oh, Mara, she's gay," or "bakla," or whatever, ganyan. I think there is some sort of mental endurance or stamina into shielding that. I mean,
Yeah,
how isn't
like
it traumatic?
that's what I'm saying. I'm not really like bothered by it anymore. Like I mean, you can call
How did you get into that bubble of, you know what? I just mind my own business and
because being trans is not my primary identity. I
wow.
guess it's just a portion of me. So I
Mm.
like for being in my being like cooped up in my own business for the longest time. I'm not really like socializing and going out. I kind of forget sometimes that I'm trans. I don't even think. I mean, I think with straight people, you don't think that you're a girl all the time. So, with me, I don't really think that I'm trans all the time. I mean, most of the time, I'm just, I'm hungry. I want to eat something. That's what I'm thinking about. So I learned that if being misgendered or mislabeled would if I allow myself to be affected by such a small facet of who I am, then I'm just doing myself a disservice because I have better things to do than worry about people mislabeling me because more often than not it's an honest mistake. It's not really a deliberate attempt to I don't know to own
attack
up to
attack
me or
you or
anything.
yeah, yeah. So are you saying that people are more accepting now than how it was then?
People, yeah, people are more aware now. I mean, 10 years ago, nobody knows what trans is. You have to explain to people what trans is. They're very confused what trans is. They think that trans
Mm.
means you've undergone the difference between trans and non-trans is basically a gay man who's undergone surgery, but it's not. Trans is an identity. It's being gay is basically it's your orientation, who you're attracted to, what you're attracted to. So if you're a man, you identify as a man, and you're attracted to another man, then you're gay or you're homosexual. But if you're trans, you're an individual who identifies, or when you look into the mirror, or when you wake up in the morning, basically you don't think yourself as the gender that you were born with. You think of yourself as another gender. And we've also gone a very long way with that because now people are already discussing about non-binary genders, fluid gender fluidity, etc., etc., etc. And in a way, I sometimes feel that I mean, it's a very important discussion, but it's not something that I live with 24/7. Like I know I'm trans, I'm this. I'm also other things. I'm a designer, human being who feels the same way as other people.
That's
I'm,
actually
I,
beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Mara. Is there
I always try
anything?
to bring back the perspective to
Yeah.
like straight people. Like I always ask them, if you're a guy or if you're a girl, do you even really think you're a girl 24/7, or you're a guy? Is that something that's going on your mind all the time? I think there's this notion that since we're different, we seem to have this we're somehow living this experience 24/7, but in fact we're just living the same lives of other
Yeah,
people.
you're still the same human being.
Okay.
Ah, that is actually gold, Mara. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, I think it's really important that you expounded on, hey, do you think of yourself as a man 24/7 day or a woman 24/7? I mean, of course not. You think about yourself as a human being doing what human being had to
You
do or had has
with the traffic, you don't think about I'm a trans woman here sitting in the car in EDSA. No, you just miss off that it's traffic in EDSA.
yeah, and but do you still think of yourself as you're different, or do you just think of
Um,
yourself as we're all different? So what is the
I think
difference?
I've accepted the fact that I'm different. That's why I don't have to really think about it all the time. Like, yeah, I'm different. So I'm so I mean, so be it. But everyone's different. Nobody's really the same. You know,
Mm.
it's just that we're more we're more visible. Our difference is more visible because we portray it outwardly. But everyone's different. I mean, nobody's made the same way. Nobody's experiencing same thing exactly the same way. So our perceptions are going to be different. Our beliefs are going to be different. It's just owning that difference that's really I mean, for us, we have to really own it because it's something that society has levied on us, I guess.
Oh.
But yeah, you come to a point where you just feel like I just want to live my life, basically.
Is there anything that I mean currently, or maybe in the I mean past few days, past few weeks? Is there anything that you would want to share? That you think it's important to actually talk about, like being in the LGBT community or being an LGBT in the LGBT space yourself? I mean, is there anything else that people still don't understand when it comes to
I mean, there's a lot of things that people still don't understand. I mean, you have like you're still having discussions about whether trans women should join beauty pageants or not when it's already
what's your
been.
take? What's your take?
I mean, the Miss Universe already said that that trans women can join. There's already a trans woman who joined, so I don't think it should be a discussion anymore. But my take is why not?
Yeah.
Why not? Yeah, why not? Because trans women are women. It's who they identify as. There is no if and buts about that. They're not. You cannot say you're a woman, but there's just simply a woman.
Yeah, I remember there were a lot of discussion about it that if you are a transgender and you are in Miss Universe, I mean, how could that be fair to the women who are actually born as women? I mean, you should have your own. That's why you have your supernatural. Is that correct?
With international thing.
Yeah.
I get like the protectiveness of the space, but I think the larger discussion is having to share such a small space because that is the space that the patriarchal society has given to women, especially here in the Philippines.
Mm.
Spaces like the Philippines where women can be successful. I mean, of course, they can be successful in other fields as well, but this is where they can dominate. So, and it's just a tiny, tiny space, and I feel like I always circle back to the movie Parasite. You have the two poor families fighting over breadcrumbs. Basically, they're killing each other over whatever was left over by the rich family. I mean, this is the same situation. Um, why why limit yourself to a small space if you can expand it and include more women into the fold? You're not the trans women will not be taking any opportunity from women who were born female. By joining Miss Universe, it's going to still be the same judging process. It's going to be the same.
Mm.
And we're not when you allow trans women to join, they're not going to be favored or anything. You know, they're not going to like pick a trans woman over someone who's born female just because trans women are not allowed to join, are now allowed to join. In fact, maybe we can have even more women to represent us in these venues like Miss Universe. So I think um, yeah, that's how I see it. Why limit yourself to a small space if you can make it bigger?
Beautiful. Yeah, that's actually true. Of course, it's going to be, it's been very controversial, if I must say.
Yeah,
It's been,
but change is always never easy.
yeah.
You know, it's always change has always been met with apprehension, I guess. And
Mhm.
but I I've seen changes over the last decade more than the previous decade. So I'm very optimistic about it. People now understand the very basic concept of simply respecting one's preferred gender. I mean, if I say that I want to be referred to as she, it's not a big deal anymore. People just refer me as she. I mean, I went to the mountains like this weekend with a group of people, and they're very respectful of my gender identity. And you know, it's so easy. It's so easy. It's not even that hard.
Yeah, it's so much better now than it was.
And
And with more awareness, I believe. And people now really embraces it even more, knowing that I think having champions in this space made a huge difference. I mean, what's her name? Jenna. I mean, what's her name? Angie King. Who else?
yeah, that's why like although I personally like that's why I'm not very heated into the discussion of participation in Miss Universe because I feel like we should be already at the point where we should be pushing for more trans women visibility in other fields as well, not just in Miss Universe, because we already have trans women who are PhD holders, who are lawyers, who are, you know, I mean, living very real lives and being successful at what they do. But at the same time, and also like yes, it's important because there's visibility, and when there's visibility, there's more awareness. And I think Miss Universe is a very big platform here, especially in the Philippines, where you know about um, trans rights as well. Um, so that's why I'm still supportive of it, although I'm just not as active as I was before.
Yeah. Let's get into that. Let's get into that. So you designed actually Rabia. Just yeah, recently. How did you get that gig and how was it like working in the Miss Universe space anyway?
Started in 2018. I started dressing another local candidate, her name is Isabella. She's from Sorsogon. I did her national costume, and then at the time, she's under Aces and Queens, which is like which
Jonas. Yeah.
Rabia's camp as well.
Yep.
So at the time, it was my friend Yo who started a stylist for them. Really new, like he used to be like a model scout. That somehow he ended up in with Aces and Queens styling for some of their girls. He almost literally dragged me into it. I'm not really interested in dressing pageant girls. I at the time my perception for a pageant is very traditional in a way that it's sparkly, it's not me basically. But I don't know. When I met Isabella, I was like, maybe this can work somehow. But like the camp itself was a little apprehensive of me because they saw my works. It's more in bridal. It's more in bridal slash avant-garde. They don't know how I'm going to translate that to pageant. But after a while, we've been very successful with Isabella. We did a lot of really interesting stuff with her, especially with Daywear and pageant. We really tried to sort of update the pageant look somehow. So that's how they sort of remembered me. And then after Isabella, it's sort of snowballed already from there. So we started dressing other girls as well from different camps. Like Samantha Bernardo is under KF, but they also dressed her for Miss Grand International. And then they approached me for Rabia for a couple of shoots with Rabia as well. That's how I ended up with Rabia.
Yeah, but I think it's just, I mean, do you think that being in that Miss Universe pre-pageant glam team is a stepping stone into this world of being a fashion designer? Like, okay, if you are starting in the fashion design industry, okay, this is going to be your path. You're going to discover yourself and yada, yada, yada. Once you get into the pageantry, you have arrived or something like that. Do you think like
I
it's
wasn't
a
even aware
milestone
that,
that
yeah. I wasn't even aware that it was a thing. It's like
yeah,
you have to be a pageant designer to be considered like one of the designers here in the Philippines, or at least you have to be like on the national stage or something. I wasn't even aware that was a thing when I joined. I just like it was purely like something for fun at the time, with especially with Isabella because I was busy with bridal. But when I started doing Isabella stuff, I was like, like this is fun. This is actually more me than bridal. Like this
yeah, you get to play.
was the catalyst of how I really arrived with like the marriage woman, the brand, the visual brand of today, like the very sexy, very powerful version of womanhood. It started there. It was the catalyst. Like, oh, this might be who I am.
And this is where you discovered yourself more. I mean, in terms of the
Uh,
style, the
yeah. So
fringes.
I wasn't really expecting it to be like a stepping stone for me. It was really just a side project where I could be who I am as a designer without really adhering to the limitations of bridal, because with bridal there will be limitations because you're dealing with basically a religious outfit, so you
Yeah,
have to
that's true.
respect
Limitations somehow.
you have to respect the
Catholic and
guidelines.
religion.
So with with Isabella, we could cut the necklines lower, hike the hemlines higher, and we really
Yeah.
explore different textures like snake skin, animal skin, faux snake skin, faux animal skin, etc. So it was a catalyst for me. I mean, it was really like a very nice creative avenue. I wasn't really expecting it to like, to like blow up and put me on the map or something.
Yeah. So, but how was it like working now with the Miss Universe team, being considered, of course, with Rabia's behind Rabia's success, being in her glam team? What was the experience like? And what are the things that you've learned actually? Actually, that's the most important piece. What have you learned that you want to share?
Weird circle. So like whenever they need something, they just call me. So I I but like working with them, I mean, Miss Universe Philippines is a new organization, so they're more receptive. I guess I think that's a good term. They're more receptive to ideas. So like when they called me to do like a red dress, I told them I want to do a maroon dress in leather. They were like, oh sure, why not?
So they're
Said that,
more open to creative,
yeah,
creative visual. Yeah.
they just
So
said that
are you saying that you just really dressed up Rabia according to what you see, according to your vision, and you just kind
it
of like
has to be like
it?
a bunch of photos of Athena. Basically, it has to be strong, it has to be powerful, and then one of the photos is like a molded leather bodysuit or something, and I was like, maybe that could work. And then luckily I had like 2 yards of maroon leather sitting in my stock. I was like, okay, let's make this work.
Yeah,
I
that's
told
so
them that
good.
I think I just asked them, is it okay if it's going to be maroon? It's more not even maroon, it's ox blood. Is it okay if it's going to be in this color? Is it okay if it's going to be in leather? And like, yeah, sure, go ahead.
And her waistline is 23.5. So, okay. Can we all have that? All right. So, thanks for sharing that, Mara. So, but most importantly, what is it that you learned throughout the process of being, the responsibility of being part of the success of
Yeah,
what was the mindset?
Thinking. It's collaborative work. You get to work with a lot of creatives that you never normally work with. So for me, I mean, it also comes with a certain level of like maturity, I guess.
Mm.
To keep a very open mind, to always to learn how to listen to suggestions as well. Because even though pageant is more creative, it's a more creative sphere than bridal, it still has a certain. I mean, certain pageants have certain rules. You have to study these laws. You have to listen to the oldies who's been fielding girls for a very long time because they know what they're talking about. You just have to be very open as well. Because you can be too rigid in the pageant world. You have to keep an open mind. You learn how to take suggestions. And you learn how to basically not take it personally, I guess.
Yeah.
There was one time we did this Filipiniana dress for Bella and Miss Universe Philippines. It was the full Filipiniana dress. It's a very short tutu dress. We had a bit of discussion about that because they wanted it like slightly longer. I said no, let's keep it like really, really short for me. Then I initially wanted it tied. We already tied the fabric. When we fitted it, we were like not too convinced that it was the right look for her, so we had to redo the skirt and do it like plain thing. I mean, it worked for the best.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Being
so you basically you learn how to like to listen to people because also know what they're doing. I think that's one of the things that sort of um, I sort of pick up with pageants. Like you're lucky to be in the pageant sphere because a lot of the creatives there are like established already, so they know what they're doing, and it's like it's a great way to learn. It's a great way to expand your creativity as well. I can't hear you now. Sorry.
Who is a person that you admire and not just pageantry and all that, maybe in the space that you are currently in? Is there any other person that you would say, okay, if I work with this person, or if I arrived into this space, I would call myself as, okay, I am fulfilled.
Wait, I'm thinking. I'm thinking like locally. I have a lot of like designers locally that I respect because they're really, really good at what they do. But like a dream boss or anything like that, or a dream collaborator, I don't really have one yet. Although I have like a bunch of creatives that I'm eyeing that I want to work with, developers, etc. But designers, I don't know. I mean, internationally, I do like have like a dream designer. When I was younger, I really wanted to work for her.
Who is this?
It's a Japanese designer named Rei Kawakubo.
Okay.
She designs for Comme des Garçons. They got really famous with the heart-shaped t-shirt and sneakers, but they do a lot of like really avant-garde stuff.
Ah, yeah, you love the avant-garde stuff. But for real, locally,
Locally, yeah, maybe like collaborate with other designers because most of like the ones that I like are normally my age as well.
because you're more of like an eccentric side of
Yeah, like the
yeah,
younger, more
yeah.
always say this exciting type of designer. But I really have very deep respect for the classic designers who like refine their work. Like you have artists like Paris Santiago, etc. Who's like very, very good at what they do, very refined. And I respect that because it takes years of painstaking practice. Basically, you have to do things over and over again for decades to reach that level. And that's something that I admire especially with like the more craftier like designers whose career span decades. It's not easy to maintain a career for how many years, one career for decades. So that's something I
Mm. Okay. So, but what is in store for Mara Chua? What's next for you?
right now. Yeah, so we're veering towards the more ready to wear for my bridal for opposites attract.
Yeah.
That's currently the market. And then for the main line, it's really more of like an abstract experimental line right now. And then currently I'm also helping my mom out with her business. So there's that as well. So I mean I have my hands full. We have like a company meeting tomorrow morning actually on
All right.
company meeting for my mom's business.
That's
Um,
great. At least you're here helping mom. Yeah.
yeah, it's I mean yeah, that's why last year was interesting because there wasn't a lot of like weddings or anything like that, so I had time to really explore what I wanted to do, especially when it comes to fashion. So I mean, I made the national costume for Miss Pasay, which is like a healthcare worker, Filipino hybrid, really as a hybrid, and I mean, it was well received. But it's really last year was more of like a soul searching for me, really what I wanted to
Yeah.
do creatively and where I want to position my brands in the market. At the same time, I had time to help my mom out with her business. So that's another thing. So I mean, kind things oddly fell into place when the machine stopped and like the superficial started disappearing.
Interesting. Interesting. So we have a question actually from the community. But before I ask you that, if there are three things that you wanted to share as a, like maybe three things that you wanted to, let's think about something here. Three things that you want to share about starting their own business as an LGBT maybe. Um, what would be the three things that you would want to
Oh my god.
share? Yeah.
Um,
Actually, not just for LGBT, for everybody, of course. Inclusivity. Yeah.
I'm thinking what would be the three things. Um, I think number one is you really have to know your product. You really have to like dig deep and research and really know what your the product or your service that you're offering to and through. I think that's the first thing before you start investing or start really acquiring uh, assets and liabilities. That's like something. Number two, you really have to you really have to like believe that what you're doing has some positive impact to the community around you.
Mm.
If you don't believe in what you do, then
Yeah.
who else is going to believe it? Number three, it's gonna be hard.
Yeah.
But number three, hmm, you can take it one day at a time. Like it's very especially in my industry, fashion, in the business sphere, it's easy to get carried away when you start earning money. You start
True.
doing this and that and this and that. It's best to really take it one step at a time and to really think things through before you do it in business, which is counterintuitive because a lot of like business practices would tell you to like strike while the iron is hot. um, it will save you a lot of money in the long run if you really think it through with your steps through, especially if your only fuel is your vision and your talent. It's not a bad thing to have only that, but you're running unlimited resources, so you have to be very wise. about things. And yeah, always be on time.
I always be on that.
Always, not just with meetings, but with your deliverables, because especially in this day and age when a negative feedback can ripple across waters.
Yeah,
you want
social
to be,
media, just
yeah,
all over
you want
it.
to be you want to be on time all the time. Number four, I have a number four pala.
Ah, sige, go.
Very pedantic with your documents.
I think it's really more of like being all in, right? So like in everything that you do, if you're all in, it's all in.
Yeah, you're starting kasi, especially with me when I started really young. I mean, I really didn't think about being recording everything on paper, but now I do everything. It has to be recorded on paper, or else it's not going to be right.
Yeah, right. Context. Yeah, you really need to have that on paper, black and white, and then edit as it happens. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing those, Mars. I'm really, really super duper mega ultra excited for you. But we have a community question.
Sure.
Yeah. So I announced it on the community that hey, we're going to have Mara Chua to be with us for the podcast. So there is a question here from Michelle, and she says, she's asking, what are your thoughts about people claiming that the Soji bill was based on feelings and not facts, when clearly there are a handful of LGBTQ discrimination cases leading to physical assault and even death all around the country? A handful of information that they easily have access to. Wow, Miss Universe question. Yeah.
I'm saying that it's based on feelings.
Yeah.
I think it's I don't know. For me, I think that's one of like the predicate. It's one of like the first things that we really have to tackle is the social bill, because it is going to be the cornerstone of how we're going to be more equal in the future, especially with the LGBT community. I don't know who's saying that it's based on feelings, because I'm also part of the community and I know the facts, of course, and I know that yes, people do get individuals do get discriminated with work, in school, etc. I mean, it's very real. I'm part of like the Society of Transsexual Women of the Philippines for a time, and back then when these things weren't really at the fore, we had to draft letters to companies because one of our members would be uh, would be barred from using the female restroom, or would be demanded to have their hair cut, or they cannot wear skirts inside their workplaces. I mean, this is clearly discrimination when other women and other people can wear skirts or can wear their hair long. So I mean, these are facts, and these are very real situations. Even in school, like, I mean, you have high schools that are that mandate certain hairstyles for men and women. Um, um, so yeah, this is actually like going back to the Miss Universe debate. You cannot actually go full throttle with the Miss Universe debate if you don't have a social, because it is going to be like the corners. This is like the stepping stone to other legislations, so that trans women can be recognized equally as women here in the Philippines. And so when they're finally women here in the Philippines, they can finally join Miss Universe, because that is the only requirement that the organization requires. As long as you can present the legal documents that you are female,
Yeah.
then you can join. And it's also going to topple a lot of like discriminative policies of other pageants that you have to be quote unquote a natural born women to be able to join. Um, so I'm not sure if I answered the question, but
Yeah. You did.
I do believe that it's really the most important legislation for LGBTQI right now that we really have to fast track, and it's unfortunate that it has lingered in the Congress for for years now, especially since the current administration's one of the promises of the current administration is to actually fast track this bill. Um, I don't know what's the future for the bill
Mm.
because we all know how politics is played in this country.
Well, that's just it. Yeah. S-
So, but it's if it does get passed, it's going to be a very, very big step towards improving the lives of so many people, especially underprivileged people. Like,
yeah, I
that,
agree.
returning to that question, if I was discriminated, I think part of the reason why I was not as affected by it because I have a certain privilege that I was born into certain privilege where I can be protected from the harshest parts of life, basically. But when you're a poor trans person, in, like the slums, where you will be beat up, where you will still be
Totally
beat
different story.
bad for being who you are, then it's going to be then that bill is for the kid because then you know they have protection, which although right now there is, but it's not specifically for them. You have the child abuse, you have the child abuse law, etc. But it's not specifically catered for for kids like that who just want to live their truth, basically.
Wow. Well, thank you for answering that. So I hope that answers your question also, Michelle. And it's really important for us, Mara, to talk about these things. I know we didn't really dive into so much, pressing issues, but at least we did tackle about perception from your side of, from your perception. And it's really important also for us to have that kind of insights. And I'm happy that when you said that I was a little redundant there, but I'm happy when you said about being in a space of privilege, and it comes with responsibility also. Now, because I am in privilege, it doesn't mean I don't care about what is happening to those others who may not be as privileged or lucky as you are. But I don't think it's just really more of a play of luck, being lucky. It's really more of equality altogether. And yeah, so thank you for joining us. How can they reach you? What is, and do you have any last messages for our community and also for your community who is also listening?
Yes, happy Pride, everyone.
Yes, happy Pride. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's a month of celebration, but it's also I mean we should always remember that Pride was born out of protest, out of riot, out of women, individuals who said that they've had enough, and I think there is power and strength and solidarity, and hopefully one day we can consolidate that power and make meaningful change and have Sogi Bill approved.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. Great. Thank you, Mara, again for watching. I mean, for being us, and for those listeners and those viewers who are watching us. Thanks again for being here. We truly appreciate the vulnerability, the honesty, the boldness that you were just sharing a while ago, and of course your craft that that you're creating, making women be badass, and for us for allowing us to also to tell the stories through your craft and releasing also our alter egos through fashion. I don't think women can ever live without people like you who actually expresses those that we couldn't express, because you see it, you know that we can be it. So thank you so much. So again, this is your host, Cassie Paharir Braganza. As we drive ambition and serve love, let's all remember equity over equality. Now, what does that mean? It means to treat others as they want to be treated, not as you want to be treated, and acknowledge differences. Always try to have compassion, kindness, and allow each and everyone's truth to hold no difference, but rather acceptance and understanding. And this is what I have learned from Mara from today's episode. We all have stories. I hope that you also get to tell your story. Happy Pride, everyone. Take care of yourself. And thanks again, Mara. Until next time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.